So I did watch a movie like a couple weeks ago or maybe a month ago, Jesus Christ, Dead to Rights, about the travesty that happened in China in 1937. And people were saying there's a new movie called 731 coming out. I didn't know if it was new, right? Because I knew there was that horrible, torturous movie called A Man Behind the Rising Sun or something like that. I know I'm saying that wrong. I did buy the first one. But 731, I was like, oh, this is actually a new film coming out. Did it do this unit or prisoners justice? Let's find out. Chase Lee Hockey here with the Blue Futon, reviewing 731. What's a pretty simple premise? This is a loosely based true story about the Japanese unit 731, and what they do is they did experiments on whoever they can. Russians, Chinese, whoever was during this impact or during this conflict/war, and doing experiments on with fire, ice, plague, fleas, rats, etc. And what they were going to do, what they did to these people, these horrific events, they were going to do something called Operation Cherry Blossom, was put a bunch of fleas, rats, plague-infested rats into these balloons and just have them explode over the biggest cities in the world, like the Great Wall of China, Red Square in Russia, the Eiffel Tower, Statue of Liberty, and they were going to do that. Luckily, it never happened, but what was unfortunate for all these experiments that happened to these Chinese and Russian people as well. So, with this movie, I think it does a okay job. And the thing I say that is because it kind of felt like a Prison Break movie, more of what actually occurred, right? Because yes, you have these documents or these real life footage of what happened during this time. Well, maybe some of it, because they did say something at the end of the film where they're like, America gave him amnesty for telling the secrets. And I know some people are mad at that, but when you think about that, right, do you give one person amnesty to have the secrets released, or do you kill that person and not have the evidence come out? You know what I mean? Some people are saying that with the Epstein file, like Maxine, whatever her name is, like Maxine Waters. I don't know what her name is, like Ghislaine Maxwell. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not an Epstein person, like conspiracies or whatever. But do you let her free, or do you let her have a minimum sentence to get all of the other people involved with the island, or even if there is a list, out in the open? That's up for someone to decide. I know some people might be mad at this decision, but it's one of those things where it's like, do you weigh the scale of justice? But that's something here or nay, right? You're here for the movie. And I think, like I said, the movie does an okay job because the tonal shifts are a little bit awkward, and the actual story itself, like, I felt like as a Westerner, right, looking into this film, while there is horrific imagery and horrific torture things that do occur in this movie, I do think it just felt... It didn't have the impact of Dead to Rights. Let's put it that way. Dead to Rights, the impact of that movie, the horrificness happening in that movie, I was like, what the living F? And that just felt more emotionally raw, and they weren't really trying to, like, manipulate the audience with emotion. Or they made the emotions very realistic and very didn't push in your face. Like, they weren't, what am I trying to say, guys? Like, they weren't trying to, it was organic. That's probably the right word. Dead to Rights was very organic. 731 was trying to, like, push it like, oh, you're supposed to feel sorry here, feel sorry here, feel sorry here. And I'm like, I know. I will feel sorry. This is some horrific shit that is happening. If they're really burning, people alive, freezing arms and peeling off their skin and cracking their bones, you don't need me to, like, it's not that organic. Here, it didn't really feel organic. And they had cartoon characters, right? Especially this Japanese lady that was really, 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 really interested in this girl with a baby. And it was like she was skipping down the hallways and just doing weird stuff where I was like, I don't know what you're trying to do with this character. Yes, they're already maleficent. They're already evil people. So there's that. And also these other two Japanese boys where one was really interested in these torture things and one was like what am I doing here? What am I doing here? And I feel like they didn't flesh out that story either, because they could have truly went the route where the guy that really wanted to do torture stuff, like, rise up the ranks and did horrific shit. And this one kind of like, oh my god, maybe I shouldn't be here and I should kind of help. But you really don't get that dynamic. What you get is this prison break story, which, while this main character, I did like feel for him of what he was trying to do, it was just very tonally different. Like, it started kind of funny with this peeing mechanism of like drinking your own pee because it's a scientific device, like a filtration device, right? And then throughout the story, they try to interject humor into this, which I understand why you want to do it, because you don't want this dark subject to really like swallow you. But that's why Dead to Rights worked. It basically said, here's this shit. It was never a fun time. Fucking not enjoy this, but enjoy what actually occurred. Here, they had weird like dream sequences of like them escaping through the hallway and wanting to be free. Which, yes, I understand that, but I don't know if it worked in the context of this movie, right? I mean, maybe you're thinking I'm completely wrong with this one, but there you go. There is that. And there is a very loud, like, jump out of your seat moment at the very end of the film. I'll give it that, where I'm like, oh, that was an emotionally impact scene for sure. But it is pretty brutal, but not as brutal as Dead to Rights. To me, Dead to Rights was 100 times brutal. It was like, oh my god, yes, here you're seeing, like I said, horrific things do happen. You're like, oh my god, that's gross. But it's hard to say, right? Like, it just felt more cartoony, even though it's not a cartoony movie at all. But if you watch it, just try to understand what I'm saying when comparing the two movies. Maybe I shouldn't be comparing the two movies. Maybe I should be comparing 731 to more of that one that came out in the 80s where it had 3 sequels. Maybe I should be doing that instead, and that's 100% my fault for not doing it that way. But overall, 731, I think the ambition and I think what they were trying to do was there. And I'm going to give it a positive review, I will, because of, when shit was going down, and you felt the emotional impact. However, there were scenes where it took me out of the movie. It felt very kind of cartoony and fake. And I was just like, I understand you. I don't know. It's hard to explain. So 731 will receive a 3 out of 5 with Futon, so it goes at 60%. So let's see the critics and user scores gave this one. And we have critics at 3 of them. We have a negative, and a negative. So I'm not the only one thinking like this doesn't really like, there we go, here we go. Doesn't give the sense of the humanity of its victims. That's actually a pretty good line where you're thinking like, oh, it's far too sanitized. That's also probably true. Maybe that's what it was, it's sanitized. It wasn't Dead to Rights where you're just like, your eyes are wide open. You're like, oh my god. Here, it was just very, very off-putting in not the right way. So anyway, there we go. 60%, and unfortunately, the 3 negatives from the critics. Chase out here with the Boo Futon. Like, comment, subscribe. I'm always Bootontopia. Your Boo Futon. Saying watch a great day. I'm going to watch today, tomorrow, week from my year. If not, obviously, go freaking want to be peace and love, peace and love. And I think overall, I wasn't bored with this movie, so that's why it's positive. But it is teetering. It is teetering.